Good evening. Honorable Prime Minister of the Republic of Kosovo, Mr. Albin Kurti, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora, Ms. Donika Gërvala-Schwartz, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora, Ms. Liza Gashi, distinguished keynote speaker, Dr. Alan Gamlin, dear ministers, esteemed excellencies, ambassadors, and diplomats, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Ulpiana Forum 2024. We are delighted to welcome you all to Pristina, the vibrant capital of the Republic of Kosovo, for the second annual gathering dedicated to diaspora engagement. Building on the success of the last year's forum, which brought together over 300 participants from 21 countries, this year's event further solidifies Pristina's emerging role as a global hub for diaspora engagement, fostering meaningful dialogue and impactful collaboration on an international scale.
That's right, Aldin. The Ulpiana Forum is more than just an event. It's a platform where global leaders, policymakers, and diaspora communities come together to explore innovative ways to harness the power of diaspora engagement and diplomacy. Building on the momentum of last year's inauguration, we are thrilled to share that this year's forum welcomes participants from over 30 countries, and this reflects our growing reach and influence. Together, we look forward to shaping the future of global collaboration and diaspora engagement.
All right. Before we dive in, allow us to introduce ourselves. My name is Arlinda Lidema, and I am proud to be part of the diaspora community. About a year ago, I returned from New York City to contribute to my homeland through the Citizen Diplomacy Fellowship Program. Thank you. An initiative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora. This evening, I have the privilege of co-moderating this opening session alongside my esteemed colleague, Ariana, who is also a proud member of the diaspora community.
Thank you, Arlind, and thank you, everybody. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ariana Krasnici, and I'm thrilled to co-moderate tonight's program. I'm also proud to be part of the third cohort of the Citizen Diplomacy Fellowship, representing the current generation of diaspora leaders engaging with Kosovo. Like Arlind and many of our colleagues here tonight, I have returned from the diaspora, specifically from Denmark, and inspired by the transformative potential of initiatives like the Ulpiana Forum. Together, we are here to guide you through this exciting evening. What else is on the program tonight?
Well, other than the opening remarks, welcoming and opening remarks and the keynote address, we'll enjoy a cultural highlight, a traditional folk dance performance that showcases the vibrant heritage of our nation. And after we've danced through history, it's time to raise a glass to the future and a much-deserved cocktail and a networking event.
I am looking forward to it. To begin, it is my honor to introduce Her Excellency Ms. Donika Gërvala-Schwartz, the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora. Ms. Gërvala-Schwartz has been a tireless advocate for fostering Kosovo's global connections and championing the role of our diaspora in building bridges between communities. Having lived much of her life abroad, she embodies the spirit of returning to contribute meaningfully to Kosovo's progress. Madam Minister, the floor is yours.
Good evening to everybody. Mirëmbrëma të nderuar zonja dhe zotrinj, excellencies, colleagues, members of the parliament, of the government, dear Mr. Prime Minister, thank you not only for being with us tonight, but thank you for showing that in the vision of this government, the inclusion of the diaspora of Kosovo is such a strong and important pillar that brings us forward in many spaces. dear Deputy Minister, dear Lisa, without you we would not be sitting here tonight. Thank you for your passionate work and thank you for your creative ideas. Distinguished activists for the cause of diaspora, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants of the Ulpiana Forum, Excellencies, ambassadors, we are so proud to host you for our international second Diaspora Forum Ulpiana. I'm not only the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora, but I myself was a member of this diaspora for 30 years. And you will see around us a lot of diaspora of Kosovo in these days. From my decades living in Germany, having interacted with literally thousands of my fellow citizens there in Germany and abroad, I have a clear understanding of how important it is that the home country continues sending signals of true relationship with its diaspora. This morning, I just came back from Switzerland, where we had meetings and gatherings with fellow citizens who are citizens of Switzerland, citizens of Kosovo, or both. This summer, our ministry has organized a music festival with hip-hop and other music with Albanian-speaking stars in Switzerland, Germany, and Kosovo. Tens of thousands of people enjoyed it. It was a huge success. It was a success because the young ones came together, the young people from here in Kosovo and the young people visiting Kosovo with their parents during summer. We have young people, we have business community, we have those who have emigrated and who are coming back when they are no longer in a working age. We have a great variety of fellow citizens who have the right that we care for them. And therefore, we have to invest continuously in our people, in the diaspora. They need to know, and they need to know for sure, that they belong to us like our citizens living here in the country. Our country is lucky enough to have a very committed diaspora with a unique connection with the home country. To give an example, the biggest donors focus over since 1999, Germany and the United States have granted our country over the years, over the 25 years, about €1 billion. Our diaspora keeps sending more than 1 billion each year, let alone the investment and the holidays hundreds of thousands are spending here at home. We know that not every country is in such a lucky position, but what we all can do, what we can do together, that is, we can exchange about our various experiences. We can try to figure out what good practice in another area could be helpful for us. That is what Ulpiana Forum, Ulpiana conferences are about. With our good and with our vast experience, we have decided that we want to be a major European and global forum for exchange between countries and actors who are dealing with one of the most important developments in recent decades, namely immigration, and keeping the diaspora connected with the homeland. Connected does not mean something technical. The homeland and the diaspora is bound together, and it is closely bound together. Today, tomorrow, and in the next days, we are happy that you are our guests. And we, as a family of nations with diaspora, we can use this opportunity of Ulpiana to talk, to exchange, and to make the life of our citizens in our countries or in our diaspora even better for the future. So I wish this conference all the success it deserves. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister Gurvala Schwartz, for your inspiring remarks. Your dedication to advancing Kosova's international partnerships and empowering our diaspora sets a strong foundation for this forum. It is now my privilege to introduce the Prime Minister of the Republic of Kosovo, His Excellency Mr. Albin Kurti.
Dear Ms. Donika Gurvala-Schwartz, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora, dear Ms. Liza Gashi, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora, dear international guests, government representatives, ministers, deputy ministers, members of parliament, Your Excellency, ambassadors, representatives of diplomatic missions in Kosovo, dear Rector of the University of Pristina, Mr. Arben Hayrullahu, dear Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Europe from Albania, Ms. Silda Anagnosti, dear representatives of international and local organizations, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to welcome you to the second edition of the Ulpiana Forum. This forum is built to harness the immense power of the diaspora capital in diplomatic, social, economic, and cultural aspect. In academia, the concept of the diaspora only emerged in the 1970s, but its existence and impact long preceded that. Across the world, groups have joined together through a shared identity, transforming the newfound home country and that of origin alike. We are no strangers to this. Several wars, waves of oppression, political prosecution, and economic hardship have shaped throughout centuries the migration of our country's people abroad. Over the years, they have become a pillar of our society and our economy. Our payback for this vast effort is not merely recognition, but also a commitment to fighting the binary notion that a person can only have one home. And most importantly, that if you do not meet the strict criteria for belonging, you belong nowhere. We believe the opposite. Namely, that one belongs everywhere and is at home in both or more countries. This forum seeks to institutionalize the long-played role that our diaspora has engaged in. This conversation is happening at the most crucial time, a time of political movements that also affect the lives of the diaspora and all people living in between. What is often labeled as the far right is not always the far right. In Sweden, for example, the movement supports government spending. What these movements have in common is that they challenge the existing order and promise that a return to the past will bring greatness. This rhetoric puts many at risk because, as history shows, going back will not bring greatness. In his novel, The Leopard, Italian author Lampedusa writes, "For things to remain the same, everything must change." That is, to maintain progress, we need new ways of creating it. Greatness cannot be found in the grief of past greatness, but in the co-creation of the new ones. The new also means creating new methods of engaging the diaspora. For us, this means that the diaspora must be an active member of the political, social, and economic system. We have allowed our diaspora to vote because we believe that the impact of a government affects many, including those living abroad, and might not spend the entire year in their country of origin. This February, we look forward to them exercising their democratic right and deciding the future of our country. One of the key initiatives under our framework is the implementation of the Dialogue with Diaspora program, which has already seen over 200 meetings held in various cities around the world. This initiative aimed to strengthen the ties between Kosovo and its global diaspora community. Our government has also made significant steps in the area of digital engagement with the launch of online population registration through e-diaspora. This process began on April 5, 2024, and will run until December 31, 2024, marking the first time such a registration has been conducted online. Additionally, the government has introduced the Citizen Diplomacy Program, which brings together young professionals from the diaspora in Kosovo, motivating them to play a role in the development of our country and strengthen their connection with the country of origin. In this second edition of the Ulpiana Forum, I am proud to witness the diverse participation and presentations from over 30 countries, spanning all continents and a wide range of backgrounds. I wish you all a successful and productive forum with opportunities to connect and collaborate in the future. We now seek to work together through this forum and other events to see how we can build on these efforts and further strengthen our collaboration. Thank you for being here with us on this journey.
Thank you, Prime Minister Kurti, for your always insightful remarks and for taking the time to be with us today. Your vision for harnessing the potential of our diaspora inspires us all as we navigate the challenges and opportunities ahead. Next, we move on to the keynote address of the evening. It is my distinct honor to introduce Dr. Alan Gamlin. Dr. Gamlin is a globally renowned expert on migration and diaspora studies and the director of the Australian National University Migration Hub. His groundbreaking work has shaped global policies and deepened our understanding of the transformative potential of diaspora engagement. Dr. Gamlin, we eagerly await your insights. The floor is yours.
I ngā mana, i ngā reo, i ngā kārangaranga o te motu tēnā koutou, e mihi atu tuatahi ki ngā tangata whenua o tēnei wahi, mihi mai, karanga mai, tēnā koutou katoa. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm from New Zealand, and we always begin a speech in New Zealand in our language, greeting the hosts and thanking them for their hospitality. So Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, Deputy Foreign Minister, and distinguished guests, thank you very much for having me here, for your hospitality. It's my first time in this country. I'm very much looking forward to my stay here and to this conference. I'm delighted to have been asked to speak on the topic of harnessing diaspora engagement to transform migration narratives. Diaspora engagement is a topic I'm embarrassed to say that I've been working on for more than 20 years now. I know there are others in the room who have been on the journey for about the same amount of time. We all share, I think, that sense of being unable to take our eyes off this topic as it has unfolded from being a kind of a strange little hobby to being one of the central trends in modern geopolitics. Diasporas have always been around. The nature of social groups is that they are always arguing about boundaries. we're always asking, who's an insider? Who's an outsider? Diasporas are the people who are both at the same time. They live in one place, but they never quite belong there. They belong in another place, one they or their ancestors left perhaps quite some time ago. But there's probably never been a human community without people who fall into this category of in-betweenness. So diasporas have always been there, but they're sometimes hotter and sometimes colder. Sometimes specific sites or rituals or dramas can galvanize these dispersed networks into action, mobilizing a sense of congregation that spans great distances. But most of the time in history, it was just too hard to keep imagining a dispersed community and a far-off homeland. Assimilation in a destination society was easier, especially when it was enforced by intolerant local societies and authorities with a heavy hand. In these conditions, which have persisted for most of human history, diaspora networks have remained small, weak, thin, and rare. But everything changed around 1990. The Iron Curtain fell. The rise of free, instantaneous global communication began. The borders between previously hostile states began to soften, and global labour migration began to accelerate once again. Now able to connect over vast distances, people rediscovered their suppressed diasporic identities. They found their lost tribes, first through watching the same satellite television shows as their distant compatriots, then through cheap phone calls and emails, and eventually through continuous online social networking and video conferencing. Millions around the world have been transformed from humble labour migrants and marginalised ethnic minorities to proud members of globe-spanning diasporas. In the 1990s, the cultural and social ties linking these growing and thickening diasporas were just the beginning. It soon became clear that the money sent home by the masses of migrant workers was growing into one of the world's largest financial flows. From humble roots, it had expanded into a more powerful mechanism for redistributing wealth than anything that homeland governments or aid donors or multinational investors could muster. Homelands became increasingly dependent on these migrant remittances and sought to keep their diasporas happy. They were the geese laying the golden eggs. They were recast as national heroes, celebrated in glittering awards ceremonies, honoured with national holidays, granted special pseudo-citizenship status, and courted for their remittances, investments, skills, connections, and roots tourism dollars. Diasporas had once been seen as misfits, scorned as victims and traitors of the nation state, but as my mentor Robin Cohen once said, by the early years of the 21st century, they had grown into the challengers of the nation state. Nothing could have demonstrated this transformation more clearly than the toppling of America's World Trade Towers in the late 2001 by a transnational terrorist network that in some ways resembled a diaspora. In retrospect, this was an inflection point, a moment when many nation states first recognized the full strength of the new and growing transnational communities and began planning countermeasures to match and shackle diasporas to state power. A key expression of states' growing desire to master the transnational reach of diasporas was the creation of diaspora engagement institutions, formal state offices dedicated to immigrants and their descendants living abroad. In 1980, there were only a handful of these slightly oddball government departments, But by the 2010s, well over half all United Nations member states had one of these, had some form of diaspora institution. They had come to represent a standardized form of governing migration. Sometimes these diaspora institutions were specialized ministries, such as the Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs, which existed from 2004 to 2016. But more often they were executive branch departments, such as the Irish Abroad Unit within Ireland's Department of Foreign Affairs, coached and advised by the likes of Kingsley Aikins, who many of you here will know. Occasionally, these diaspora institutions took the form of interdepartmental committees, tasked with coordinating diaspora policy issues, or legislative committees such as Nigeria's House Committee on Diaspora Affairs. In a few cases, they took the form of dedicated seats for elected representatives from the diaspora, which now exist in 12 countries, including France and Italy, or formal advisory councils of prominent expatriates appointed or elected to give opinions on laws and policies affecting diaspora groups. The sudden and global spread of these diaspora institutions in the first 15 years of the new century was both surprising and for some slightly alarming. Sometimes these efforts at diaspora engagement seemed to project state power beyond state borders in ways that were inconsistent with the territorial definitions of the modern international system. They seemed to interfere in the domestic affairs of foreign states, raising concerns about conflicting sovereignty claims, such as when Turkish leaders called the integration of Turkish migrants in European countries a crime against humanity. Sometimes these policies interfered with the freedom of exit of immigrants who wanted to sever their ties to their former homelands, but found themselves spied on instead. And these state diaspora engagement efforts were sometimes said to give influence over law to people living abroad who are not subject to the resulting laws. These are not the only pitfalls of state-led transnationalism. Some scholars fear these government diaspora schemes represent dangerous spillovers of pent-up ethnic nationalism, irredentism, revanchism, which precede territorial disputes. They say that embracing of immigrants goes hand in hand with bashing immigrants. They worry that when you say, "You're one of us, so you work for us," states cast migrants as fifth columnists and spies, undermining their integration in the society where they live and making them unwitting pawns in dangerous international security games. It would be naive to dismiss these risks as merely theoretical or philosophical. In 2019, I raised many of them in my book, Human Geopolitics, which opened with the case of Russia and Ukraine. I noted that Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 had been preceded by an upsurge of ethno-nationalist pride and proprietorial interests concerning Russian communities in the peninsula. And I warned that Russia's continued rhetorical embrace of the diaspora could signal preparations for another territorial claim, a prediction which sadly came true not long afterwards. With these risks in mind, we should be very careful what we're wishing for when we call for states to harness diaspora engagement. The world has moved on and changed fundamentally since the 1990s. In that long-gone decade, the Western powers led by the United States were gleefully triumphant about the collapse of the Soviet Union and the supposed ideological victory of liberal democracy as the ultimate source of human progress. If history was the contest of ideas, they thought, then this must be the end of history. The global spread of free markets was only a matter of time. The world was open for business. The rise of diaspora engagement was an inevitable part of this. Little did they know that in the next 30 years, there would be a series of cataclysms that fundamentally challenged the basic premise of global openness. The 9/11 attacks showed that history as a material struggle was far from over, and that global openness brought profound security threats to the West. Less than 10 years later, a global financial crisis demonstrated that the free movement of capital and goods brought financial volatility on a scale that threatened global stability. And then in 2015, a European migrant crisis brought home the risks and costs of the free movement of people. By this time, the wisdom of allowing any and all global flows, finance, trade, people, and ideas was openly questioned by a rising anti-globalization movement. And in 2020, the anti-globalist dream came true when a global pandemic shut borders down completely. All forms of human migration and mobility came to a complete halt, whether it was walking to the shops, commuting to work, traveling abroad, or moving to another country. It was the biggest disruption to human migration and mobility in the history of the world. And yet the surprise was not how badly things fell apart without that migration and mobility, but how well we managed. Life seemed to slow down, re-entering a nostalgic pre-global era. This showed the anti-globalists insisted that we can do without migration and diasporas should be put back in their boxes. Against this background, how can we meet here today and still sound optimistic about what the Economist newspaper once called the magic of diasporas? Because there's still so much promise. Because everyone loses when the world shuts down. Because there's still so much to gain by building bridges between and among different societies, cultures, and economies, just as there always has been. The first enthusiastic hopes for diaspora engagement were that it could soften the hard borders between antagonistic states, enabling intercultural communication, which instead of emphasizing the purity of ethnic groups, encourages cultural flows between them. By allowing and enabling certain kinds of diaspora engagement, that is still every bit as possible as it was in the 1990s, and even more now so, that seamless, instantaneous, cross-border communication is everywhere. The early promise of diaspora engagement was that migrants could become the filaments of globalization, the ones who forged the people-to-people links and connections and socio-cultural bridges across borders and allowed global trade, investment, and development to thrive. Even though populists on both the left and the right of politics are losing faith in it, that vision of a world open for business is still in many ways valid, and it still relies on the connecting role of diasporas. The challenge is working out how to mitigate the real risks of diaspora engagement without stopping it altogether. How can we address the legitimate and growing concerns of the anti-globalists and the anti-migrant forces in society without reverting to the kind of closed-shop nationalism that always exists in wartime and relegates outsiders to the role of misfits, victims, and traitors? How can we enable diaspora engagement to continue acting as a social and economic bridge between sovereign states in a peaceful world? How can we retain and promote the best aspects of diaspora engagement in a period when it may become increasingly difficult? I hope these are questions we can work together through in the coming days. Thank you again for having me here, and I'm very much looking forward to our discussions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gamlin, for your illuminating keynote address. Your expertise and thought-provoking insights provide a powerful framework for the discussions that will follow in the coming days. And we also highly appreciate you bringing a bit of New Zealand in Kosovo. And for that, it's an honor having you here. Faleminderit.
As we conclude the opening session, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to all our speakers, both today and in the coming days, for setting the stage with such vision and passion. We also want to extend our gratitude to our Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ms. Lisa Gosche, as well as to all our colleagues at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora for all the hard work they've put into making this a reality. And a big thank you to every single one of you for being here with us today. Faleminderit.
Indeed, Ariana, as we continue with the program, we invite you to enjoy a captivating performance of a traditional Albanian folk dance by the National Ensemble of Songs and Dance, Shota. Following the performance, we look forward to welcoming you to the cocktail and networking event. Thank you and enjoy the performance. I hope you all enjoyed that performance. A big thank you once again to the National Ensemble of Songs and Dance, Shota.
And now let's get that much-deserved drink. Bye.
Thank you.